Hello there, good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Anthony Baxter. Coming up, pressure on the PM as more of his MPs speak out over Partygate and the number of no confidence letters grow. What are 10-year-olds in London most worried about? Not gang violence, but the cost of living crisis, according to one poll. We'll be speaking to a charity urging the government to get a grip on the squeeze on low-income families. We'll take a look at the weather for you in the next 10 minutes. Plus, he designed Diana's wedding dress. David Emanuel will be with us on his plans for the Jubilee weekend and sharing champagne with the Queen. And if you're already over the bunting and Britishness, there's a flavour of flamenco before 7 as the annual festival celebrating the Spanish tradition returns to Sadler's Wells. All of that to come. First, though, this evening, the Prime Minister could face a confidence vote as early as next week, according to one former Tory leader. Lord Hague says respected backbenchers are turning their back on Boris Johnson over the Partygate scandal. More MPs have today spoken out against the PM as the number of letters handed to Sir Graham Brady continued to grow. Hebe Campbell reports.
John Stevenson, an MP for Carlisle, has joined other Conservative backbenchers today by submitting a letter calling for a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson. This comes as a drip feed of Tory MPs have been submitting letters in the wake of the Partygate scandal, with an influx of these letters following the release of the Sue Gray report. A total of 28 Conservative backbenchers are now publicly demanding his removal. But behind the scenes, others have privately said he should step down. But what has to happen now to trigger a vote of no confidence? Well, for a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister to take place, 54 Tory MPs, which amounts to 15%, must submit letters requesting a vote. Then, all Conservative MPs will do a secret ballot, voting on whether they believe the PM is fit for office or not. 180 Conservative MPs, which is half plus one, would have to vote against Mr Johnson to trigger a leadership election. If he loses that, the Tories would then vote on a sitting Conservative MP to replace Boris.
Hebe Campbell there looking at what it would take then to get to the stage where there is a vote amongst Conservative MPs. Let's move on to one or two other stories. There have been claims of absolute chaos at Gatwick as passengers reported queues of up to 4 hours at check-in. Many venting their frustrations on social media. The airport hit back, saying it was operating normally but is extremely busy because of the half-term holiday. Well, many airports and airlines across the country have been hit with delays and cancellations because of a shortage of staff caused by the pandemic. There have also been queues today at the Eurostar and St Pancras. Kevin Spacey has said he will voluntarily appear in the UK to defend himself against charges of sexual assault. The actor faces 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 men. He faces another charge of causing a person to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent. It's claimed the incidents took place in London between March 2005 and August 2008 and in Gloucestershire in April 2013. Well, Mr Spacey has now responded to the allegations, saying he is confident he can prove his innocence. A road worker has died after being hit by a road sweeper in Finsbury Park. Police say it happened yesterday morning between Pemberton and Whiteman Road. The driver of the sweeper stopped and has not been arrested. As many as 45,000 London households could be given as much as £20,000 each to improve the energy efficiency of their homes. Sadiq Khan has announced his Warmer Homes programme will receive a £43 million injection to support low-income Londoners. Working with councils, the Mayor says he will write to those eligible, urging them to apply for grants to be used for installing heat pumps, insulation and repairing existing heating systems. Now, the capital is set for a £100 million spending boost this week, courtesy of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. London predicted to see a surge in tourists heading to key locations such as Buckingham Palace, the Mall and Westminster Abbey. Forecasters also expect an 8% increase in retail sales this week. That would add about £80 million to the usual amount spent in a typical week. And on top of all of that, bars, restaurants and pubs expect to take in close to £20 million. And awful lot of cash coming our way, it would seem. Well, the chief yeoman warder at the Tower of London has said that the Jubilee celebrations couldn't be any bigger for him, as he and his team ready the attraction for the long weekend. As part of the festivities, 20 million seeds have been planted in the moat to create a wild flower meadow called Super Bloom.
Well, the fact that this is the 70th anniversary of Majesty the Queen on the throne, the Platinum Jubilee, I don't think it can life for people like us who living at the Tower as yeoman warders and ceremonial bodyguards for Her Majesty. It couldn't be any bigger. It could not be any bigger. So if there's any place to be right now as an ex former sergeant major rank of the military, it's got to be now. So we're all excited about it. There's 33 of us here as yeoman warders, and we've been part of the build-up. We had a fantastic team out there getting ready because we're displaying. I mean, there's over 20 million seeds gone into that moat, and it started colouring already. We're really excited about that. But this is the start of our journey. Now it's a big week coming up because we got gun salutes on the wharf on our gun park. We've got lighting of the beacon the same evening on the 2nd. Then we've got the day after we've got the baton coming in for the Commonwealth relay coming in. So there's loads happening. But from now, basically to the 18th of September, we're going to have a beautiful floral exhibition down in the moat, and we're excited about that.
It's been a really challenging project. We did a lot of risk assessment, but I don't think we really thought it could be as bad as it has been, because it's been an incredibly dry spring. Not just dry, but it's been really cold as well. In fact, it seems to be continuing. We've had lots of strong wind as well. Particularly in the West Moat, which links directly to the River Thames. It's just been almost gale force winds coming over. So it's put the project back probably by a couple of weeks in terms of the development of the seeds. There have been some areas in the moat where the seedlings haven't really taken very well. So in the last 2 or 3 weeks we've gone in with an action programme to reseed, to patch up areas. What is great is that where it's really worked, which is over the most of it, is doing exactly what I would hope it would be doing on the opening time, which is just having the first few flowers coming through amongst a lovely haze of green leaves, and you can really see the potential.
But it's something completely different, never been seen before. And I think with what's happening in the world, and we're talking about the environment and looking after the environment, we came up with this idea that says let's join in, in the middle of the city of London, let's join in what's happening.
In the centre of London, against a really globally known building, it's not the most obvious place to make this huge, expansive, beautiful meadow. But in a way, I think, if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. Although there are little pockets of green spaces, they're all quite formal around here. This is a huge area of wild in the centre of London.
There we go, the Super Bloom at the Tower of London, all part of the Jubilee celebrations. It is in bloom now, you can see it. The gold state coach that the Queen travelled in for her coronation has made its first appearance on the streets of London for 20 years, alongside more than 200 personnel who have been carrying out their final rehearsals ahead of Sunday's Jubilee pageant. Royal Navy sailors and Royal Marines have spoken of their pride at being involved in the event. They wore their normal uniform for the rehearsal. They will be in full ceremonial uniform, as you'd expect, for the pageant itself, which will tell the story of the Queen's 70-year reign. That is on Sunday. And some of the Queen's most dedicated followers already waiting for events to begin. Tents bedecked with bunting have already been pitched this afternoon, despite the rain, on the Mall near Buckingham Palace in a bid to get the top spot for proceedings later this week. There's always the super fan, isn't there, at these events? We do love them. A few other stories away from the Jubilee for now. Millwall have unveiled plans for a new training ground. The Championship club currently have a base in Bromley, but say they're hoping to create a new 50-acre site near Sevenoaks in Kent within the next few years. In a statement on the club's website, they say the ground will include a mix of indoor and outdoor pitches to accommodate their first team, academy and other staff. Patients who are undergoing replacement knee and hip surgery at University College London Hospital are making it home on the same day. It comes as the London Hospital has become an orthopaedic hub and has managed to clear its backlog of patients awaiting complex knee and hip replacements. By doubling the number of such operations in a year, about 10% of patients get home on the same day as their operation, while the average recovery time in hospital has been cut from 4 days to 2 from hips and 5 to 3 days for knees. And fans of Jeff Beck were given an unusual pairing at the Royal Albert Hall last night as the musician was joined on stage by Johnny Depp. The actor also joined Beck on stage in Sheffield in Sunday. It's becoming a bit of a thing. He's awaiting the verdict of a defamation trial involving his ex-wife Amber Heard. One way to wait out that verdict. Let's take a look at the weather for you. It's been a bit wet out there at times today. Those showers should ease away this evening. Lows of about 9 degrees. Wednesday will start dry, plenty of sunshine, turning a bit more unsettled later on. We could see some heavy, thundery downpours at times. Thursday, it could be sunny and warm at this stage. A nice start for the Jubilee long weekend. Friday, perhaps a little bit cloudier and breezier, but still staying dry. Something to look forward to. Right, stay with us still to come. The cost of living is a source of anxiety for children in the capital, according to new research. We'll be hearing from a charity that has called for Londoners to be given more things to do during the crisis. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Let's take a look at one or two of the headlines this evening. Authorities should stop collecting large amounts of personal data about rape and sexual assault victims. That is according to a new report by the Information Commissioner, which says police and prosecutors are treating victims as suspects. The Commissioner, John Edwards, said victims are being asked for extraordinary amounts of information, including medical records and school reports. The Home Office says it has already strengthened the law on requests for digital information. Health officials have given new guidance for people with symptoms of monkeypox. The UK Health Security Agency says those who may have the virus, which is transmitted through close personal contact, should not have sex. Dozens of cases have now been reported across the UK. The agency says the risk to the population remains low. People are being advised to look out for rashes and scabs that are unusual to them. And teaching unions have urged the Chancellor and the Education Secretary to help provide free school meals to all children from families on universal credit. The union says the cost of living crisis means many pupils and their parents are now struggling to buy a hot meal at school. Well, let's just stay with the cost of living crisis for now. New research suggests it is the #1 concern for young Londoners. A study by the Co-op says almost half of 10 to 25-year-olds in the capital rate financial pressure as the top challenge they'll face this year. Many also fearing they'll be forced out of the capital because of the squeeze. Well, earlier, James Dickman spoke to Kaylee Wainwright from the charity UK Youth.
The research that was undertaken by the Co-op was to really look at what are young people saying, what are their biggest concerns and their worries, and it showed that the biggest worry for 10-year-olds right now is the cost of living crisis. So I think we all need to be asking ourselves the question: is that okay? Are we happy for that? Are we happy about that? Should we be worried that 10-year-olds are worrying about this? It's a lot for them to have on their shoulders, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that children are showing up in the survey as worrying about this, we often want to protect them from the harsh realities of life. But when something like this, that is usually for parents to concern about, for adults to worry about, is seeping through to young people, particularly children, as I say, that's kind of an indication of just how bad things might be, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, there's two things that really stand out. I think firstly, when I think back to being 10, I heard the news, I heard information from my parents, from the 6 o'clock news that was on in the background, and I think now it's just everywhere. And so I think there is something about access to information that we can't protect children and young people from anymore because of digital and media. So I think there's something about how do we protect, how do we enable them to have the critical thinking skills and the confidence to navigate through that. And I think the second thing is for a lot of young people, this is the reality that they're living in. They're seeing their parents who are maybe struggling to put food on the tables, accessing food banks, worrying about the rising prices of energy bills. And after 2 years of being in a pandemic with COVID, they're looking at their future and thinking, what does this mean for me? And so we need to be giving them more access to opportunities to get out in their community, to have some fun, and then to really get them to think about how can they access jobs, what's out there for them, and what support is available for them to do that.
Yeah, touching on what you just mentioned there, is a lot of their anxiety, do you think, about this issue and why it's happening is because they can see in their local communities around the capital that things don't look like they could be that prosperous for them going forward?
Yeah, I think London's a really interesting place because, from other parts of the country, young people are moving here to do better and to get access to jobs. But, we know from street to street there can be really high levels of poverty alongside, lots of wealth and lots of opportunities for young people. And I think for some young people in particular who face quite a lot of inequality and discrimination because of, maybe the colour of their skin or where they go to school or just various factors, they're sat there thinking, how can I access this? And when you're in that cycle of poverty, it's very hard to kind of get out of that and to access the support that can help them to have those hopes and aspirations and the skills in order to move forwards.
Because there's also a worry, and it's come up in your statistics, about the fear of young people wanting to leave London because they don't feel that there's enough for them here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, young people have been hardest hit by COVID. They're thinking about saving money, and actually that isn't really an option actually for many young people now. And so they're looking at the prices of property. They're looking at what they might be able to earn, and it's just not stacking up. So they're looking at actually where do I need to move to in order to have some kind of like sustainable lifestyle. So I think we need to really hear and listen to young people with this and think about what are the solutions that we can create with them, to think about what are their options here. We need to create better pathways for young people in terms of jobs. We know through our work at UK Youth that if young people have better access to youth services and youth workers that can help them to navigate this, that can give them the opportunities to connect with their community as well and have that sense of belonging, that they're more likely to have better outcomes and therefore stay in their local community and lead the path for their future generations as well.
Yeah. So on that then, what would you like to see happen? What are the big things you'd like to see change, perhaps? And would you like to see more help from the government, perhaps giving you a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think it's definitely down to like one organisation to fix this. We definitely need a better joined approach across government, business, education, youth services to create better pathways for young people. I think there needs to be more investment in youth services, particularly in youth workers and the projects that young people can get involved in. And we need to create the space for young people to be leading the conversations and coming into that with solutions. Often they have amazing ideas of what the future could look like, and the research showed that 3/4 of young people want to be making a difference. So how are we enabling that to happen? We need to give space to that and listen to young people.
Well, whilst children are worried about their finances, their parents are suffering from burnout because of the cost of living crisis and the impact of remote working. That is according to a study released today by an employment firm. It claims close to 60% of working parents have experienced increased levels of stress and frustration. Working from home said to play into all of this. Ashley Cranman is from Employment Hero, the firm behind the research, and is with us. Good to see you, Ashley. Let's talk a little bit more about this research then. What are parents who are working telling you?
From the research that we've gathered from our wellness report, we've kind of seen that there's 59% of working parents within the UK that are experiencing burnout through the pandemic and so on currently. And just from talking to different clients currently, we've seen that there is an increase of parents that are kind of feeling the burnout from obviously the cost crisis, but also coming out of the pandemic and etc. So there's kind of a lot of parents, including myself, that have come from different backgrounds that are, trying to find a new way of navigating this new world that we're living in.
Yeah, the study seems to suggest that perhaps the working from home aspect has added to the pressures that parents feel, and I can understand that. Can you imagine being on a call and having to deal with a toddler as well? It must be stressful. But the element of flexibility, has that not helped?
I think that there is the flexibility from my perspective has helped. Being able to work from home and being remote first has been an amazing thing for myself as a parent. Being able to be at home and work and etc. and having flexibility. But there does come the support line as well, so that when things are currently happening at home and things like that, that it's not seen as a negative thing for a working parent to have, first priority of, a toddler at home or, sickness and things like that. So I think that a big positive part of working from home is giving that flexibility back to working parents.
Do you think that companies now need to look at kind of almost the post-pandemic 2.0? So we saw how rapidly companies were able to respond to the pandemic and get workers out of offices. Do they now need to start to think about how we look at a long-term working arrangement, certainly for parents?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when it comes to this new world that we're living in, that there's no kind of stability on what is around the corner, and with the flexibility of working from home, but also going into a new area where, you know, employees need to be a little bit more flexible because, you know, kids get sick, there are other things that come into play, other responsibilities and things like that, and that shouldn't come into question about a person's performance, that they're able to kind of give 100% during their times that they're working, but have the flexibility to say, hey, you know, my son's sick, or I need to go and pick my son up or whatever because of different reasons. So I think that there is a need for employers to kind of reevaluate how they're supporting working parents currently and in the future.
Okay, Ashley Crammond there from Employment Hero. Good to get your perspective on this. That survey suggesting certainly working parents feeling burnout, feeling stress and frustration as we come out of the pandemic. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Anthony Baxter. A reminder of the top story coming up after the break, plus the designer of Princess Diana's wedding dress and what he expects from the pageantry and celebrations this Jubilee weekend. David Emanuel will be sharing his royal connections, including the time he popped a bottle of fizz with the Queen. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Hello there, welcome back. Let's just remind you of the main story this evening. The Prime Minister could face a confidence vote as early as next week, according to one former Tory leader. Lord Hague says respected backbenchers are turning their back on Boris Johnson over the Partygate scandal. More MPs have today spoken out against the PM as the number of letters handed to Sir Graham Brady continued to grow. Hebe Campbell reports.
John Stevenson, an MP for Carlisle, has joined other Conservative backbenchers today by submitting a letter calling for a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson. This comes as a drip feed of Tory MPs have been submitting letters in the wake of the Partygate scandal, with an influx of these letters following the release of the Sue Gray report. A total of 28 Conservative backbenchers are now publicly demanding his removal, but behind the scenes, others have privately said he should step down. But what has to happen now to trigger a vote of no confidence? Well, for a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister to take place, 54 Tory MPs, which amounts to 15%, must submit letters requesting a vote. Then, all Conservative MPs will do a secret ballot, voting on whether they believe the PM is fit for office or not. 180 Conservative MPs, which is half plus one, would have to vote against Mr Johnson to trigger a leadership election. If he loses that, the Tories would then vote on a sitting Conservative MP to replace Boris.
Now, having made Princess Diana's wedding dress seen by millions across the globe, David Emanuel has had his own experience of the British public's reaction to a royal occasion. As we head towards a long weekend of celebrations, David has been telling Alicia how he'll be marking the Jubilee, as well as why he thinks Brits love a royal party.
I think there's going to be an explosion of everything. First of all, the schedule. Have you seen the schedule? Her Majesty's schedule. It's jam-packed. And I was in Windsor, because I'm from Windsor, live in Windsor, and the place is bursting with visitors and tourists. Every shop is jam-packed full of memorabilia. And so at any shape or form, you can participate. You know, I mean, we have to remember it's a bank holiday. It's a 4-day event. But why are we doing it? We're doing it to say thank you to Her Majesty the Queen for over 70 years of public service. Quite extraordinary. And she needs to be applauded. And I think also the timing of this is that we've gone through, let's be honest, gloom and doom. We've had Brexit, we've had COVID pandemic, a war, and now we've got huge inflation. But it's predicted. MRSIS is a research and survey company, and they've come up with staggering statistics. For instance, here they're predicting 8.1 million Brits will be celebrating. Right? It's enormous. In America, you think we're royalists over here? In America, 43 million people are predicted to be celebrating this event. I was watching the show, I don't know if you saw it, where Mary Berry was judging the best dessert. And the humble trifle came out. So will you be making a trifle? That's what I want to know.
I'll certainly give it a go. I'm happy to give anything like that a go, of course.
Well, you start with Swiss roll at the bottom, then you do layers of either cream or custard, and you build it up. You could put sherry into it. You could put vodka. I mean, whatever you want to do.
I'll put it all in. Put it all in.
Exactly. And I think it's a wonderful excuse to pull people together. And I know we've had a tough couple of years. We all know. We've lived through it. But just try and forget that, even just for a moment, and celebrate together as a community, but also to say thank you to the Queen.
David, you've had your own experience of the royal family over the years, but what's your experience been of the Queen herself now, marking 70 years?
I think she's remarkable. She always turns up looking immaculate. She looks camera fresh. She's always ready. And that takes some doing. Fortunately, I've met her several times, but the one moment I clearly remember was very intimate, was doing the pictures with Diana at Buckingham Palace after the wedding. We're there in the throne room. We can hear the roar of the people outside. And I was busy, helping her with a bouquet. And we want the train in shot. We want the train out of shot. And you're looking around. There's Princess Margaret, there's Queen Mary. They're all drinking champagne. The Queen came up to me and she said, "Have you had some champagne?" And I said, "No." and within 2 seconds, I get a large goblet of champagne, which I have to tell you was much needed. And that's the caring side. You know, she was looking around, checking that the bridesmaids were okay, and like a mother, like a grandmother. You know, it was lovely to see. It was very special.
Looking back, of course, being part of such a huge royal occasion in the way that you were with Princess Diana, you mentioned there one of your main memories of the time. Having seen recent royal weddings, does it take you back to that time?
Well, it takes me back because it seems, for whatever reason, whether I'm perhaps the only couturier alive, but they seem, the American networks and around the world want to know what it's like. And just before the moment, they say, "What do you think is happening now?" I said, "Well, I should imagine that the bride is getting into her gown. There'll be a touch-up of makeup, and a car will arrive or a carriage will arrive. And if it's a military operation and it works like clockwork, it has to, because you can't have a. Traditionally, I love it when brides turn up half an hour after their start time. I love that. I love the drama. But on this occasion, you know, you've got the TV networks around the world waiting, so you've got to be on time. So yeah, extraordinary time. And it's not until you're in a situation where people like you and the American broadcasters, what was it like? How did you feel? And you have this flashback. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Well, it was. I recently last saw her gown at the beginning of the year. It was on display at Kensington Palace, and queues around the block were going. When I went in, it was very emotional because it's behind in a glass case, and it's a bit like it's almost untouchable. The last time when I really saw the gown was when she was wearing it on the day. So all those memories come back. There we have this beautiful bride, was so happy and excited, and there was one moment, got a dress, veil, tiara all ready, and Elizabeth, my ex-wife, and I slipped downstairs, and she came to the top of the stairs at Clarence's house. Now, all the household were downstairs waiting, as was her father. And I had this extraordinary flashback. Do you remember? I don't know if you know the movie My Fair Lady, where Audrey Hepburn is standing on the top of the stairs, hair, tiara on, and this fabulous white gown. And as Diana glided down the stairs at Clarence's house, there was a gasp. And that was a wonderful, I remember that like it was yesterday, because people said, and she kissed her father, and he said, "Oh, you look beautiful." And all those things do come flooding back, actually.
Yeah, it's such a special time to be a part of. I was lucky enough to go and see the dress at Kensington Palace last year.
Oh, you saw it? Oh, right.
And I saw a few of the little bits of detail. One that I just loved. You were hiding dummy bits of fabric to trick journalists, hiding them in bins.
Oh yeah, we were very naughty, because don't forget, my whole studio was surrounded constantly. So we had to, in Diana's studio, when we were making the gown, we had to push it all into a bag, take it away and burn it elsewhere. But to throw the press off, I would deliberately drop samples of pale silk taffeta in the bin, and they would rummage through the bins. And the next day in the press, it was, the royal dress is going to be pink. And I go, no, it's not quite pink, you know. But we had fun. You had to have fun, and that's what was great to keep us going. Diana was full of fun, and she loved the naughtiness, and we. Like any bride, you promise to keep it a secret. I consult with brides today, and I say, no, don't show your head brides, but don't show your cousin. I said, let them wait. It's a magical moment. You're going to do this hopefully once in a lifetime. So let them see all done, hair and makeup done, and then the gown. And it's a good surprise.
Well, that's one bit of advice, David. I'm actually a bride myself. I'm getting married next summer. What's your top tip for saying yes to the dress? I haven't started looking yet.
Don't leave it to last minute, because when I consult, we have some girls flying in 3 months. Well, you can't get anything ordered for then, so you have to buy off the rack, whatever's there. So I would say go through dresses that you like, necklines that you feel comfortable in, whether you want some, and look at online and look at magazines. Do you want something slim? Do you want something A-line, or do you want a fairy tale? It's all there. In fact, I was recently at the Barcelona Bridal Week, and now lo and behold, after all these years, everybody wants, like a Diana, full-blown dresses. And grand. I mean, it's great for business. But I'd say get the dress once you decide on it and have faith in your consultants. Look in the mirror, try to be objective, and then purchase the dress. Then they'll have to order it, and then it gets ordered in. Then you have to go and try and leave your fitting, whether you like it or not. You will probably might shed a few pounds. Some brides shed on a few pounds, but and have it fitted as nearest to the time as possible. That's all. On the day, well, before that, if you can, get a trial for makeup, whether you've got a best friend or a makeup artist. Do a trial with your hair so you know exactly what you want. Take pictures of it and say, that's what I want to look like. And then on the day, don't rush. Allow yourself plenty of time. With Diana, I was there, 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, the service wasn't until 11, but she had to get from Clarence House to St. Paul's in a carriage. That takes time, then time for your hair and makeup, then time to get dressed. So, because then you can enjoy it. I hate last minute panics. Hate it. Plan it. So whether you have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, it depends what time of day you have your ceremony, and enjoy it. Just, it's a magical time, and keep them waiting. Oh, absolutely.
I'll go for your method, the half an hour.
Oh,
not 5 minutes.
No, that's easy, 5 minutes. Just let them wait. And I always say to bride, don't take snapshots of no, let them wait. And don't share on social media your wedding gown. Well, there's no drama in that, is there?
David Emanuel there, speaking to Alicia about that dress and also potentially her dress. Right, stay with us still to come for the final part this evening. The Jubilee festivities continue. We'll be hearing about a special operatic performance at the Royal Festival Hall on Saturday. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Hello there, welcome back. Let's return to the Jubilee celebrations. The Royal Festival Hall will host a special performance this weekend of the Royal Choral Society and the Royal Philharmonic, with the majority of pieces connected to royal events. Well, Henry spoke to one of the sopranos involved.
Yes, I'm very excited to take part in such a momentous event. It's always such a pleasure performing with Raymond Gubbe and with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Certainly a momentous occasion, the Platinum Jubilee for a 70-year reign. The celebrations have already started and will run for the next few weeks as well. What does it mean for you, though, to be involved?
Well, I think it's just such a wonderful thing to have accomplished. You know, she's dedicated 70 years of her life to a role that she didn't choose and, you know, didn't expect she would take on. And she has done that with dignity, with grace. And yeah, I think she's quite an extraordinary woman.
And of course, you're working with Raymond Gubbe and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, along with a host of other exciting names. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic occasion, doesn't it?
It really is. Yes, we've got the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra playing, the Bach Choir, the Royal Choral Society, and the wonderful Katie Derham is going to be presenting and leading the event. So it'll be a privilege, actually, to be part of the whole concert.
So all the pieces have been chosen for their connection to royal events and have featured in either the coronation or a royal wedding. What will you be singing and what's their royal connection?
Well, I'll be performing a couple of arias and some songs. So I'll be singing Let the Bright Seraphim by Handel from Samson, and the most beautiful piece of music, Eternal Source of Light Divine, which was sung at the wedding of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex quite recently, and Schubert's Ave Maria. And I'll be joining in with the choir and the orchestra at the end for some pomp and circumstance and Land of, no, not Land of Hope and Glory. I think we're doing I Vow to Thee My Country. So it'll be, yeah, it'll be a wonderful ending. Been chosen especially because they all have some royal connection. So, for example, the orchestra will be playing Zadok the Priest, which was written by Handel for the coronation of King George II. I think it was back in 1727. And all the pieces have either been played at coronation ceremony or at royal weddings, up until very, very recent royal weddings. So it'll all have that link to connect everything.
It's certainly a momentous occasion, the Platinum Jubilee for a 70-year reign. The celebrations have already started and will run for the next few weeks. But what does it mean for you to be involved then?
Well, I think it's an opportunity to hear wonderful music performed by London, Britain's best musicians. And it's just a chance to celebrate together, like we said, a very momentous event. And come along if you want to be enthralled by some wonderful music.
As we've already mentioned, the Jubilee will be a fun and momentous occasion, but it's just the start of a busy summer for you, isn't it?
It is, and I'm very grateful, so I can't complain. I'm performing with Grange Park Opera in The Excursions of Mr. Broček by Janacek, and we open on the 9th of June, and then I go straight then to perform in Handel's Theodora at the the Northern Aldborough Festival. So yes, there'll be no rest for a while.
Well, you can get involved in that performance, 2:30 at the Royal Festival Hall this coming Saturday. Finally, for those looking for something other than bunting and Britishness, Sadler's Wells is offering a taste of southern Spain in the coming weeks. Now in its 15th year, the venue's Flamenco Festival explores the roots of the dance tradition to its more modern-day incarnations.
It's a real mix and a real diverse programme. So if you want to come towards the end of the festival on the 1st and the 2nd of July, you would see Maria Pajes, who is a flamenco legend. But also in the middle of the festival, we have an artist called Jesus Carmona, who's really working on new perspectives of flamenco. It's much more contemporary. And it's those kind of shows that I would urge audiences to give it a try, because it will really challenge your perceptions of what the art form is. But generally speaking, you can come to Sadler's Wells, you'll see some amazing dancing, some fantastic singing, great footwork, live music, and it's a real taste of the Mediterranean in London over the summer. So there's tons happening.
Yeah, the idea isn't there, particularly for people that aren't so familiar or aren't so into traditional flamenco, to experience something in a festival where there's something for you, perhaps, because there is so much going on.
Yeah, so we've got some performances in our studio theatre across the festival where they're kind of younger artists, they're more emerging flamenco choreographers and artists who are really challenging what our preconceptions are of the art form. So they're really taking it on a different journey.
Yeah, and there's some pretty raunchy displays. I've just been looking at some of the pictures. There's some. There really is something for everyone, isn't there?
Yeah. So the show that opens the festival is called Viva by Emanuel, and that's a new show that we're bringing to Sadler's Wells, where it's different in terms of the gender balance. So normally you would see female dancers wearing the flamenco frocks and the shoes, but he turns that on its head completely. So it's a real. It's very different, but it's very fun, and it's won tons of awards in Spain. So that's going to be a really good opener to the festival.
Yeah, are you trying to make it sort of bigger and better than it's ever been, particularly because of those years you've missed out on it?
Yeah, it's a shame because we weren't able to present any flamenco over those 2 years. But what's exciting about this is that we've really wanted to present as much as we possibly can this year. So normally we would just have the shows in the main theatre and some in the studio theatre, but we're doing some workshops, there's talks, there's going to be some outdoor work that will pop up over London at some point in the first week. So we're really excited about it here, and we really encourage audiences to go on sadlerswells.com, book their tickets and come see some fantastic flamenco, which you won't see anywhere else in London.
James there finding out more about the Flamenco Festival. It's on at Sadler's Wells the 21st of June, right the way through until the 2nd of July. A quick check on the weather before we leave you. Any showers should die out this evening, a low of around 9 degrees tonight. Wednesday, it starts dry with plenty of sunshine, but it will turn more unsettled. We could see some thundery showers later on. Thursday looks like it will be more in the way of sunshine, a brighter, warmer day, perhaps slightly cooler as we continue the Jubilee weekend. That is all from the news at 6 this evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 6.